Good afternoon. Today is Thursday, September 16th, and I decided in the chaos of this week not to leave a spiritual reflection from the weekend, but rather, as soon as we got a break in our emergency response from all of these destructive Southern Oregon fires, to give you an update as a parish on what our fire response has been, where we are, how you can help. I come to you on one level with a heavy heart because of the level of loss and destruction that we've experienced right now in Jackson County. The latest information tells us that over 42,000 people this week have been displaced from their homes. They are either homeless because their homes were lost, or they have evacuated and have not yet been allowed to return to their homes. So we have just about everybody I've talked to who has a spare room in their house, or a camper parked out back, or some spare yard space to set up a tent. Just about everybody is taking somebody in, or if they haven't been able to do that, have asked to give of what they have to share with others. So on the one hand, my heart is heavy because of the loss that people have incurred, but I also find hope in the fact that there's also goodness out there. You know, when you follow the national news and hear about especially all the rioting and kind of hateful acts that are on display, you wonder if there's any goodness in humanity left, and now we see it on display in our time of need. We know that we've had outreach from people across the United States who've called various churches and asked if they can send money from the East Coast or New England or the Midwest. We've had people who are not necessarily members of faith communities, but are people of goodwill who've come and contacted us and asked if they can lend some aid. And we've had aid stations and things spring up all over the city. In part, thanks be to God, we actually had planned for this event. 2 years ago, 3 years ago, the LDS community came to me and asked if they could work in partnership with us, the Mormons and the Catholics together, along with Red Cross, to put together an emergency plan for, at that time, what we thought was a hypothetical big earthquake or a major wildfire event. And we spent the last 2 years holding conferences, bringing church leaders together and various civil and governmental leaders to talk about how churches could serve in this time of need. So it was for an event that I didn't necessarily imagine would happen in my time stationed here, but just 2 years later, that very hypothetical event has unfolded, and in the biggest way possible. We're told that across the West Coast, more forest has been destroyed this fire season than I think the last 12 seasons combined. That this is the hugest fire season in 100 years. So this is a more than just a generational type of event. It's maybe once in 3 generations. And because of the scale of it, it's been overwhelming. I've been especially inspired by our firefighters and first responders. I want to extend a great thank you and a salute to them. As you all know, one of those firefighters is our own Deacon Dennis Macy, and he joined me for Mass earlier this week, a daily Mass. He told me he was on about a 2-hour break. I imagine a lot of people would have taken that break and taken a nap or got a meal, because he said he had just come off a 30-hour shift, but he decided to come and join us for prayer. And then I understand he headed right back out. So there's so many wildfire fighters and city fire stations that responded, trying to save life. And amazingly, the loss of life has been incredibly low considering the scale of events. I understand there are 50 or 60 people who are still missing, and they are trying to find their whereabouts, but if confirmed deaths, thanks be to God, the loss of life has been low, but the loss of property and homes has been incredibly high, and these updates have escalated daily. I think by Saturday, I could only confirm 6 parishioners who had lost homes. By Monday morning, I think it was 28, and then yesterday in the afternoon, the new number we received was over 130 of our parish families who have lost everything. in various kinds of circumstances. Some even who were out of town traveling, who had cars and garages, who even lost their vehicles and who now need aid with transportation. But the plan we set in place several years back is one that is unfolding right now. And I want to give a special thanks to Amy Arnold, who helped to produce a resource list that I think is the finest available in the entire Rogue Valley. It's about 10 pages. It's got everything from, if you need food, go to these places. If you need clothing, go to these places. If you need pet care, go here. If you need this or you need that, places to report. It equally functions for those who were not harmed by the fire, but who want to offer material assistance. We do not, at Sacred Heart here, according to our plan, we don't want to be a distribution point. For those who've asked about that, our distribution point, from my perspective, is St. Vincent de Paul. That is the Catholic Church. And so if we have material things, we transfer them there. But we're actually asking that people help us by not bringing us material things to be dropped off here. It actually gets in the way of the work that we're trying to do. Instead, we want to give those lists out to people and ask them themselves to deliver them to those distribution points. That's the most efficient way. And I understand also that Amy has been updating this list daily, every 24 hours. That's because, I don't know, maybe a third to a half of those distribution points were temporary in nature. Dealing with that first 72-hour window, especially as people were trying to evacuate to safe locations and just find a place to rest their head for the first night and just meet with immediate needs. As soon as numbers dropped, certain stations closed. I know the LDS community said they were maintaining one checkpoint where they had 200 people. And yesterday I was informed that once it dropped down to 6 people, they closed it. So by updating these checkpoints, we make sure and not send people on wild goose chases. But one thing that we are doing is advocating for our parishioners and kind of being an air traffic control for information. So from the very first day, we started forming 2 lists here, one for people with specific needs and one who were offering specific forms of help. And immediately, as soon as we would find a match, I've told our staff, just try to achieve little victories, make sure and connect those people up so they get the kind of aid they need within a 24-hour period. That's the level of turnaround we've been trying to have. Early on, when there was chaos, it was a little bit hard for us to respond, as half of our parish staff was also evacuated. But we did open up our school gym and our parish hall for people who needed a safe place to be. I think ultimately we had 4 families make that request, but only 2 ultimately who came to us because 2 others found a place to be. And since that time, most everyone I've checked with for at least that short first window found a friend or a cousin or a neighbor to share a spare bedroom with. But since Monday, I feel, once we got through that first crisis and the weekend, we're entering, for us, phase 2, where we now have collected a considerable amount of information. One of the things that has come clear to us is that because Phoenix and Talent had quite a lot of trailer parks and manufactured home neighborhoods, it has been considered by a lot of people to be a lower income option for housing. And when those areas burned, the group that was most disproportionately affected by them was our Hispanic community. Many of them lost everything, and quite a lot of them did not have homeowners insurance. So it's a massive loss to them. Many of the churches realized early on that although their communities were not so diverse, they don't have, in some cases, a lot of Hispanic members of their churches. They realized that was where the need was. Initially, they shared with me, some of these churches, that they had the desire to help that group, but were not able to figure out a way to reach out to them. And within the Hispanic culture, we know the pattern is tending to be, because of lack of documentation in some people's cases, that Hispanic members of our community reach out to other Hispanic members, um, kind of under the radar, and sometimes there's a fear of deportation or of other problems that may be caused by reaching out, and so they have, out of fear, foregone receiving some kinds of help. We've been trying to solve that problem by, well, first of all, the fact that about 55% of our parish is Hispanic. We've actually been getting all that kind of information, and we linked up through connection with other parishes to La Clinica to make sure that that community is aware of all of the programs and funds that are available to them, where citizenship is not a requirement, where social security number is not a requirement. We want to make sure that people are getting aid. There are Christian brothers and sisters, and that is the portion of our community that's hurting the most. So we've been working on making those connections. A second thing we've done, we had vacated earlier this year our 2 rectories here on our campus, with the thought that eventually they would be scheduled for demolition to create a space for the building of our Faith Formation Center. On Monday in the morning, we reconnected all of the utilities there. The places were empty, so we had to bring some furnishings back. But very quickly now we have moved families into both of those houses. So I think at last count, Bernice told me we have 16 people staying in those 2 houses. One is a 2-bedroom house, one is a kind of a 2.5-bedroom house. So you can see they're kind of packed, but for emergency, we have that. And we also are freeing up every available fund we have. So we've collected some funds from the Sunday weekend where people wanted to make some kind of offering to help people in need. We've since had some more major benefactors come forward with funds, and I informed both our pastoral council and our finance council that we are going to free up the entire budgetary allowance for charitable giving for fire relief. So this amount of money may be somewhere between $75,000 and $100,000. The need is very great right now, and money is the thing that we need the most, because people who lack everything, they certainly need food supplies, they need clothing, they need everything, but we're trying to work with the other distribution points to get what they can through those things, and with our resources to get what's not covered. For instance, one woman shared the idea of, she was working with her own landscaper, and he lost his equipment that allowed him to make a living. So she made a donation that he could replenish his ability to earn an income, which is a huge kind of donation and a creative thing to make sure he can keep working and providing for his family. So some people need construction tools or a suitable uniform so that they can report back to work and make sure that they have an income source while all the other instability is happening. We've also had families, by the way, in our Sacred Heart School impacted. I think last check we had 4 families with Sacred Heart School whose homes burned down, and so we have extended some special tuition assistance for them. Archbishop Sample got a report on our situation here. I asked for him to be present in a regional meeting via Zoom, and I gave him an update, and he has told me that based on all the other regional meetings that he's been a part of, that it turns out actually Sacred Heart Parish has been the hardest hit by the fires of any parish in the Archdiocese of Portland. So he actually has put out a request that all of the Catholic churches in the northern area take up a second collection this weekend and help send funds down here for our aid. I told our staff, with whatever available funds we have, we want to try and distribute them all within the next 2 weeks. This is when the window that is most pressing. We've already started this afternoon. We have families coming in cycles for the aid that we can give as we continue to connect them up to other material resources. One of the things that I want to advise people, if they want to help, again, I would emphasize the thing we need most is money. And so if you're able to make a cash donation, that might seem like some to be the least thoughtful thing, but actually it's the most practical. But if you have material things rather than that, you have blankets or clothes or pillows or sleeping bags or air mattresses or other things like that. Please, the best thing is one of two things. Either come by our office and get a distribution location list and bring those items to the appropriate distribution point. That would be if you just want to help people in general in the Rogue Valley, probably. If you're specifically wanting to help people in the Sacred Heart faith community, however, my suggestion would be to call our office, speak to Bernice, let her know specifically what you have to offer and how we can reach you. And immediately, as a request for those kinds of things come in, we'll call you back and give you a number to connect up with that party so that we can help them. I want to just really emphasize right now this, as we get into the second phase of recovery, action is what is most needed. Material support is most what is needed. So I'm directing other people. If some people want to come in and share thoughts and ideas, that's okay. I'm going to have other people gather that. What is more pressing for me and what needs my energy is the concrete solutions to real needs. So that's where I'm going to devote my attention. Our entire staff has been incredibly heroic in this time, working around the clock. We are essentially a call center here in our parish. I mentioned to our staff, I walked down the hall at one moment yesterday, and I observed that every single one of our staff was on the phone. So they're all talking with people who have real needs, and I just urge them, don't let anyone get off the line without some concrete form of help, without a mini plan, without a time we take to pray with them, to show them our hope in Christ, to give them some sense of security. And we're going to continue to do that as we move forward. So please, the need is imminent. We need your assistance now. Let us know what you can do. If everyone makes a commitment to help one neighbor, we can really reduce the almost intimidating size of this crisis. But know that your brothers and sisters in Christ from around the state and really from around the country are praying for you and also offering help. And we're doing our little bit in this corner in conjunction with other churches and with other governmental and charitable agencies. So that's an update for us with our rectory. By the way, with our parking lot, we're offering that to anybody who's living out of a camper who needs a free place to park. Feel free to use our parking lot. We invite you to do that. We'll open up restrooms if we have to. If people don't have transportation, we'll come pick you up. One of our staff will drive you to a store and get you some items that can help you get through the days ahead. And then eventually, after this first window, perhaps the month of September, when we start getting into October and the temperature turns a little bit, we're going to need to look at a phase 3, because I have a strong feeling that a pretty large segment of our population are going to have to relocate out of the state of Oregon, or at least out of our region, since we already had a shortage of homes before all this hit, and now it's much worse. The earliest count from FEMA was that 500 to 600 homes were lost. My eyes told me that was not accurate. And 2 days later, yesterday morning, they updated it to 2,753 homes lost, not counting apartments. So let's say an apartment building with 8 units was being counted as one dwelling. So when the final analysis is in, is going to be between 3,000 and 4,000 living units that have been lost in all of this. And we're working especially in conjunction with Our Lady of the Mountain Catholic Church in Ashland and Shepherd of the Valley in Central Point regarding that, because we all have parishioners from the Phoenix Talent area. However, we have the most. Ashland, at last report, had 18 families who lost their homes. They're still trying to get a number at Shepherd of the Valley, but ours is in the triple digits and growing. So anyway, a lot of people coming to us with tears and with broken hearts. And we're trying to work together to rebuild a spirit of hope in their lives and stand with them in solidarity. So I hope you'll join us in that cause. Please keep us in your prayer as staff also. We are all exhausted and short on sleep. But we thank you for all of you who've responded so generously. It restores my hope in humanity and also in the power of Jesus Christ working in people's lives. Stay safe. Contact us with any kind of resource you have available, and let's get everyone some help so that we can walk through this crisis together. God bless.